How you doing?
Good.
All set? Good evening. I'd like to call the March meeting, March already, of the Lancaster Town Zoning Board of Appeals to order. And will we start with a pledge to the flag, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Ms. Terranova, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Castellano.
Here.
Mr. Dorenzo.
Here.
Mr. Michaeli.
Here.
Mr. Storr.
Here.
Mr. Sugg.
Here.
Mr. Tillmans. Chairman Monticelli.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we're ready for the first case whenever you are. If you would read it for us.
Notice is hereby given of a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Lancaster to be held Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. local time in the Town Board Chambers in the Lancaster Town Hall. The meeting will be recorded. The items for consideration by the Zoning Board of Appeal at this meeting are: Number 1, petition of Thomas Garland, 5679 Broadway Street, Lancaster, New York, 14086, for 2 variances for the purpose of constructing an accessory pole barn on premises owned by the petitioner at 5679 Broadway Street, Lancaster, New York, to wit: A variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing a pole barn 18 feet 11 inches in height. Chapter 400 zoning Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a maximum accessory structure height of 16 feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 2-foot 11-inch variance. B, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing a 1,500 square foot pole barn. Chapter 400 zoning Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a maximum accessory size of 750 square feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 750 square foot variance.
Thank you. Mr. Garland, are you here? Come on up to the podium, please. Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Thomas M. Garland, 5679 Broadway.
Okay, thank you. Would you tell us about your project?
It's a barn for my motor home, and I have 2 trailers I want to put in it.
Okay.
That's why I need that size,
Okay.
and I need the height.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's going to look like?
I got a professional contractor coming in to do it, so it's going to have the aluminum siding, trim, roof, aluminum roof,
Okay.
and 3 doors.
3 doors. Any windows?
Pardon?
Any windows?
4 windows and a man door.
Okay. All right. And do you have a color picked out?
Yes, if he has it. It's a darker, on the darker red side
Okay.
with black trim.
Okay. And what color is your house? I'm sorry, I don't recall.
It's a brick ranch,
Okay.
and the garage is red.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No?
Okay. All right, we're going to open it up to the board for questions.
Okay.
go in order. Mr. Castellana?
Yeah, yes, sir. So your pole barn is going behind I was at your house. It's going right behind your garage,
Yes,
directly behind it, because you got the two, it looks like you got your mobile home, you got another, trailer back there, and plus
Yeah.
you got a driveway back there, right?
Car hauler.
What's that?
My car hauler
Your call,
and a flatbed.
okay, so it's going directly behind your garage, or
It's going not directly, but it's like 55 feet
55.
from the garage, the back of the garage.
it's gonna be the same color as pretty much as the garage?
Pretty
The
much,
front?
yeah, same color, red.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Castellana. Mr. Dorenzo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Garland.
Hi.
I see you have quite, well, not I see, I know you have quite a few neighbors. Have you talked to any of your neighbors about your project?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Other than that, I have no other questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dorenzo. Mr. Michaeli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Mr. Storr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You are intending to just store your trailers in your RV?
Yes,
No commercial purposes of it?
No.
No woodworking shop or
my own
any business?
equipment.
Perfect. No further questions, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. Mr. Suggs?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sugg. I have no questions that my colleagues haven't asked. Anything else to add?
I got a lot of work to do before you build it.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment? Okay, yes.
I'm Tom's wife. We have a lot of problems with rodents getting in the motorhome and trailers. So that's another reason why, because they destroy things, that, the wiring and different, like fence and stuff. And we've been, for years, we've been putting up with that, so that's another reason.
And I hear they're especially bad this year.
Especially where we live.
Yeah, I've had a problem myself, more than usual. Would you give us your name for the record, please?
Kathleen Garland,
Kathleen? Okay, and the same address.
yes.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I guess we are ready for a roll call vote, please.
I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry, that's a
Okay. First case.
good idea.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings: that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by granting the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefits sought by the applicants cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that this requested area variance relief is not substantial, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought, that this board is taking into consideration the benefit of the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted is weighed against the detriment to health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intended purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance relief necessary to afford.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Dorenzo, thank you. Now, roll call vote.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Dorenzo?
Yes.
Mr. Michaeli?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Mr. Suggs?
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli?
Yes. Okay, congratulations. Your petition has been approved, so you just need to get a hold of the building department at your earliest opportunity, and you'll go from there.
I should get a hold of them?
Yeah, just give them a call, the
Okay,
building department,
building.
okay? And they'll take you from there.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Have a great night.
Take care. Ms. Terranova, would you read the second case, please?
The second case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of the petition of Kristen and Peter Rabinski, 426 Lake Avenue, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of constructing a roof structure on premises owned by the petitioners at 426 Lake Avenue, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a roof structure 3 inches from a primary structure. Chapter 400 zoning Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires an accessory structure to be a minimum of 10 feet from another structure. The petitioners therefore request a 9-foot, 9-inch variance.
Thank you. Mr. or Ms. Rubinski, or both of you? And for the record, would you give us your name and address, please?
Peter Rubinski, 426 Lake, Lancaster, 14086.
Thank you. And tell us about your proposed project.
It's basically just a pavilion that goes over the hot tub to prevent sun from affecting my wife's skin. So. But other than that, it's basically a pressure-treated and cedar pavilion that has a steel roof over the top of it. And that's about it.
Thank you.
It's over the stamped concrete, which has been there for 15 years, and the hot tub, the location of the hot tub has been in the same spot for 15 years. So it's just going over the top of it.
And is there already a roof there?
What's that?
Is there already a roof covering the spot?
Well, it is actually done already, because there was misunderstanding on my part. Last, probably January or February, when the building inspector, when I came to get a permit, they weren't taking anybody to come into the building. So then I had called and they said, well, you're not a contractor. I said, well, this is what I want to do. And I told them that what I was doing, and they said, is it attached to the house? I said, no, it wasn't attached to the house. The person I spoke with, I don't know. It was a woman I spoke with. I said I could do it 2 ways. One, I could attach it to the house, or 2, I could make it freestanding. And she said, well, if it's attached to the house, you need a permit. I thought what I assumed was if it's attached to the house, I need a permit. If it's not attached to the house, I don't need a permit. So then in May, I built it, and it's been up for almost a year now. And a few months back, a building inspector sent me a letter saying that I built it without a permit. So there was a misunderstanding on my part, definitely. When I did come in for a permit, they said that I need a variance, so then that's why I'm here for the variance for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll open it up to the board for questions and comments. Mr. Castellano?
No, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Mr. Dorenzo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's pretty tactful how you blamed your wife for her skin for this
Well, no,
project.
she's a redhead and she's got fair skin, so she gets burned very easily.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for it, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's convenient for me also.
It works out well for everybody.
Yeah, it works
right?
out well for everybody, but more so I didn't want her to be burned all the time.
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dorenzo. Mr. Michaeli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Michaeli. Mr. Storr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
And thank you, Mr. Storr. Mr. Suggs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions except for a statement that happy wife, happy life.
Yes.
We hear that a lot, don't we?
I'll get the
Who can
handcuff on.
argue?
It's on the record.
All right, would anyone care to make a motion on this request?
Oh, there.
Okay, thank you.
No, I skip those questions.
I'm sorry.
Any comments?
Oh my God, I'm going to get this straight one of these days. Thank goodness for these guys. Okay, any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, there being none.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. Go ahead.
Whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Lancaster has made the following finding, that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance relief sought is not substantial, and that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, and that the alleged difficulty is self-created but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought, that this board is taking into consideration the benefit to the applicant if the area variance relief sought is granted, as weighted against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intended purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief.
Thank you, Mr. Storr.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Suggs. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Castellano.
Yes.
Mr. Dorenzo.
Yes.
Mr. Michaely.
Yes.
Mr. Storr.
Yes.
Mr. Suggs.
Yes.
Chairman Monticelli.
Yes. Okay, you are
Set.
all set.
All right, thank you very much. Have a
Get-
good night.
You're welcome. Just get a hold of the building department. We'll be on your way. Okay, thank you. Okay, would you read the third case for us, please?
The third case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of the petition of Lucas James, 43 Conrad Street, Depew, New York, for one variance for the purpose of a site plan approval on premises owned by the petitioner at 5827 Broadway Street, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning section 17 subsection C Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for pavement at the east property line without setback landscape area. Chapter 400 zoning section 17 subsection C Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a minimum side and rear yard for parking, loading, and stacking areas abutting a non-residential district of 10 feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 10-foot setback variance.
Thank you. And Mr. James?
Mr. James is not here. He's not actually in town at the moment. I'm James Mancuso. I reside at 2054 Como Park Boulevard, Lancaster, New York, 14086 in the village. And I'm just here to represent.
Okay, and did he by chance give you something in writing?
Actually, I read this myself. I'm actually taking care of the animals on his property and bringing his mail and other things into his house. But this is all I have that he left for me.
So,
After reading it, I understand that maybe there might have been something more that he should have left.
okay.
But
I just need him to say his name and address into the microphone so it can go on the
Okay.
recording.
Okay.
My name is James Mancuso. I reside at 2054 Como Park Boulevard, Lancaster, New York, 14086. And that is in the village.
All right, thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about Mr. James's request?
Okay, so I don't presently know everything about the project and what is going on. I do know that the pavement that is on the property, he had said to me, has been there for the past 40 years. He is looking to, develop the property, but whoever, it's the Desiderios property, and he said that roughly around 40 years ago, Desiderios had not pulled a permit possibly to put that paved section in, and that at this time, he really doesn't feel responsible for something that was done 40 years ago that possibly didn't have a permit pulled at that time.
And he owns the property now?
He owns the property now, yes. I think it's going through, I'm not 100% sure if it's absolutely closed, but it's either closed or soon to be closed. I know he did purchase the property, yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Castellano?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. What's going on the property?
So I know he is developing the property. I think it is going to be, so I don't work for Lucas James. He is out of town. I'm here just to represent him. I don't think that he expected this to happen when he was out of town. When I had briefly talked to him, it sounded like there was going to be some businesses on a lower level, and that's all I could say. I'm sorry that I can't produce more.
There's a site plan in the package.
Yeah, it's like a motel. Business is on the bottom and
Mixed use,
residential.
mixed use retail downstairs, I think, and apartments upstairs, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, I have no other questions at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. Mr. Dorenzo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, can you speak to the permit issue on that property?
Yes, the project right now is in front of the planning board. It's a mixed-use facility, commercial on the first floor, and proposed hotel rooms for short-term rentals. I believe there's 6 on the second floor, 2 on the first floor. So, I mean, at this point, still have to get through the secret process for the project itself. So it's, currently at the very beginning stages of my understanding as of 2:45 p.m. email today, there's a need for a second setback variance for a parking area distance from the right-of-way, requesting an additional 5 feet. I haven't analyzed the drawings yet to determine the north or west side.
So there could be more coming.
There will be more coming.
Okay.
There's also a proposed pavement area on the adjoining parcel to the east, which would need variance as well. There's a cross agreement between the two parties to allow access to that side of the property for additional parking spaces. And if I can correct the applicant, again, in the explanation of the existing parking facility, it was installed over time, as needed for the former restaurant. But I believe it was 4 years ago, there was a demolition permit issued for that property to remove all the structures. Parking lot is included. So the intent here is to reuse the existing pavement facilities, provided they can show that it's going to meet the various taxes that are necessary for a paved area.
And that adjacent property is Quick Fill or one of the gas stations there?
Correct. United Refinery, I believe, is the owner of the property.
Red Apple or
It's gonna
something.
be on
Yeah,
the
Red
side of a large drainage ditch that they will use.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Sir, do you know if the applicant has spoken with any of the neighbors?
So it's actually funny that you mentioned that. So, and I'm sorry that I can't be more helpful. I do apologize about
That's
that.
okay.
Like I said, I'm only here really because he's out of town. Other words, he wouldn't even have asked me to be here. The only other thing that I do know is that he has talked to the Red Apple Quick Fill, and I'm not sure if the part of that pavement is on their property or not. Okay, and that's what he had mentioned to me, was that part of that might have been on the property, and I wasn't sure exactly after speaking to him, but that he had talked to the owners of the Quick Fill Red Apple, and that they had no issues with any of this or the paving that was on their parcel.
I'm actually thinking about the people actually in Bell Tower. That those seem to be like the ones that might have more to say about what's going on there. Okay, you'll get a chance.
Yeah.
But you don't know if he's spoken with them at all?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I really don't.
No other questions, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durenzo. Mr. Michaeli?
So I'm a little familiar with this property because I looked at it a few years ago for purpose, but I think that there's a fairly, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, there's a fairly significant part of the parking lot that's on the other property. So there may not be more pavement here than there is now. Is that correct? I mean, I remember looking at this a few years ago and it was just very strange. So with the part that we're being asked is to have the pavement up to the neighboring parcel on the east.
Correct.
I think looking at it now, it's probably all paved anyway. It was all being used by Desiderios.
As a non-conforming
Yeah.
use.
I mean, my bigger issue, I think, right now is, are we allowed to vote on this? Because we don't have, normally we have a letter from the applicant giving permission for so-and-so to represent me. We don't have that now.
No, and we don't have that at the planning board level either. That's the one thing we're missing. It is out for seeker, as Matt indicated, but we don't have the affidavit from the actual property owner authorizing this applicant to make this application on his land. That's what we're waiting for before we can go forward on the planning board side, and I would suggest that for legality that this be tabled until we all have that, because I don't know that he can make an application on a variance, at a variance level, even without that, because he'd be asking for a variance on somebody else's.
So Lucas James doesn't own it yet? Or he does, but...
It appears to me that he's asking for a variance on a part of land adjacent to what he may or may not own. I don't know if he owns it yet or not.
I don't own any of this.
I'm under the impression.
Specifically on the one parcel.
Okay, and he owns that parcel?
He owns that parcel.
Okay.
And there has been some discussions back and forth, gaining authorization from the United Refinery to make application with this board to request variance on that property on Mr. James' behalf.
Because he tried to buy it, right, Matt, but they refused to sell
They
it.
attempted to buy it, but, the real estate portion of the some other company. They're just not interested in parceling or making it a real estate transaction, perhaps because of the collateral that's associated with the existing facility. There may be some monetary purposes for that.
What I was getting at was that even that Lucas James didn't, I'm sorry, what's your last name, Mr.?
My name is James Mancuso.
Mancuso.
Last name.
Mr. Lucas James didn't give permission for James Mancuso, and I'm not blaming you, but
That's
he
okay.
didn't give
I
permission.
understand.
There have been other cases in the past where someone's been held up at the airport or whatever, and they've sent someone else, and there wasn't the availability to sign a waiver.
So it's not-
It's been okay.
Okay.
There's no reason.
No reason we
You
couldn't.
also have the choice of adjourning it to next month if you
Okay.
care
I
to.
believe seeker needs to be complete as well prior to the resignation.
Right. So it does seem to be that the best solution.
I recommend that you table it until the next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be your best solution.
So on my end, I'm fulfilling my agreement to Lucas
Yeah, I know.
James. You know, I came here, I did what I did as a friend, as a past employee.
We're gonna tell him it was your
for a very long
Put it
time.
this way, it's better- it's better
So-
that we-
But, you know, and it was weird, because as I was reading this, what he left for me too, because I'm actually taking care of a couple animals he has on his property and bringing his mail in and stuff like that. I actually was reading through this, and I thought that maybe he had put an application for me to be here. I wasn't sure, but I figured me coming here the worst that would happen would be something along these lines, you know?
Yeah, we appreciate your
And I
efforts.
try not to pry too much into his business endeavors as well.
We don't have enough information, I don't think, to approve it, so you're best.
That's
It's either
fine.
that or we don't approve it, which is not good.
Yeah.
And he can watch it online to see that it wasn't your fault while it would be
Yeah,
tabled.
because it's live streamed.
Yes, absolutely.
You still have to have a motion and vote on it.
I'll make the
Okay,
motion.
should we go through the board and hear from the neighbor first?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, good
okay.
idea. You want, that's true.
Mr. Storr, any?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was mainly to Matt. I mean, it appears that we're going to table it anyway, but just for my own personal knowledge, I have been here when there wasn't the applicant himself here and it was someone else. This is already a parking lot or blacktop that is already in place. Would anything that we do today preclude or slow down the process at the planning board meetings? Or is anything dependent on this, any of his building dependent on this variance being approved at this current point in time?
Don't think I could answer that accurately because the applicant will make decisions based upon the outcome of this hearing. But there are some other issues that still need to be resolved prior to this board granting relief to this one specific. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be another.
I would say, because with just from the plan, with that many stacking spots, a drive-through, all those parking spaces, after we saw with what the car wash, I'm assuming he's gonna have a whole list of stuff coming our way, or at least something else. But I didn't know if this was a table or denial or approval would impact any other stuff that was already in motion for you guys or the planning board.
No, because there's still information needed for even the planning board to continue its review of the project.
Perfect, thank you, Matt. No further questions, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. Mr. Suggs?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Suggs. I have none at this point either. So.
Can I make-
we- I'm sorry.
The public? Public?
Yes. Sir, do you want to come up? You can have a seat, Mr. Mancuso. Thank you for
guys
your
so much.
efforts.
Appreciate everything.
Or you're welcome to leave too if you'd like. Hi.
My name is Lawrence Ronald. I live at 3905 Bowen Road, condo 42.
And sorry, what's your last name, please?
Ronald, Lawrence Ronald.
Ronald,
R-O-N-A-L-D.
Thank you.
And I
Okay,
live
go ahead.
at condo 42 at 3905. My main concern is, I can't see that corner. I know Frederick's Manor used to be on a corner over there. I know that Desiderio's was on a corner. I just moved here. I bought the property in 2018. I'm more concerned about noise, but according to what the representative said, and what you, ladies and gentlemen, have said is that there's not enough information to really know what's going there right now, right? You just mentioned something about
Well, we
6
know what-
apartments and a retail center?
We know what's going there. We know what's planned to go there. We don't know if it's going to be approved at this point.
Okay, so what kind of a retail center is that?
Currently, they do have an anchor, well, I'll call it an anchor tenant for a coffee boutique for the drive-through. And then there's 3 spaces for commercial activities.
Commercial activities, okay. What kind of commercial activities?
Whatever is permitted in that zoning district.
Okay. Yeah, my only concern is, I can't see the property from my unit. I'm just concerned about more noise at odd hours of the day, you know, like in the nighttime, or, I know we've got all commercial zonings. There's a 7-Eleven across the street on Bowen Road from me. I don't hear much noise over there, really, because I'm too far from it, but that would be my only concern. Will I be contacted for the next step of this?
Sir, you should go to the planning board meetings, because they'll be a much more integral part of this. We're only here to address the small, the one variance.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of very valid questions about the entire project.
Yeah.
That will be at the planning board.
Okay, and will they contact me or no?
I don't know if you, when is the next planning board meeting that this will be? Or is it on the agenda?
Pending the response time for the seeker process and information that still need to be submitted to the planning board and town engineer of other matters. The recommendation would be to request a meeting of the project.
Yeah.
Either the clerk's office or the building department, just to see what the project is entailing.
Okay.
And then if you have comment or concern, to put those in writing and then direct them to the planning board.
Planning board, okay, so I can stop by tomorrow, or the next chance I get, and I can get some, you said some building project
You
information?
would be able to view the plans that were submitted for review.
View the plans, okay. All right, I will do that then.
And as far as notification to future zoning board, you will get a notification as a resident who lives within 100.
Oh, okay.
500 feet?
Okay.
And when you come to the clerk's office,
Yeah.
you will be asking for a Freedom of Information
Freedom of information.
form. You will fill it out, and we'll get the information from the building department, and
And
that's...
let me review it?
Right.
Okay. All right, that's good enough. So, just as long as I am allowed or have the opportunity to stay on top of this, so I can see if it affects me more than it does right now, so. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it, have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Ronald, you too.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to table decision number 3 to the next zoning board meeting.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Technically, so-
Do we table or adjourn,
John.
Diane?
Adjourn?
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to adjourn the matter of case number 3 for 5827 Broadway. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Dorenzo?
Yes.
Mr. Michaely?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Mr. Sugg?
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Terranova. When you have the opportunity, would you read us the last case, number 4, please?
The fourth case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is the petition of Daniel Block, 33 Pear Tree Lane, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of constructing a patio roof cover on premises owned by the petitioner at 33 Pear Tree Lane, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning Section 14 subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a patio roof cover 7 feet 6 inches from an existing in-ground pool. Chapter 400 zoning Section 14 subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires an accessory structure to be a minimum of 10 feet from another structure. Petitioner therefore requests a 2-foot 6-inch variance.
Thank you, Ms. Terranova. Mr. Block, you want to come up to the podium, please?
Hi, evening. My name's Dan Block, and I live at 33 Pear Tree Lane in Lancaster.
Okay, and tell us about your project, please.
So last year we had a pool put in, and just based on the way the yard is with the easement behind the fence, we were kind of limited on where it could go. So we put the pool in, and we had just a free-form gazebo structure up in the backyard for shade, because there's no trees or anything around us. And unfortunately, the way the wind is with the farm back there, even strapped down the roof would want to give out on the structure. So we took that down fairly quickly after putting it up, and we found that the only option we have for any sort of shaded structure is to have a actual hardtop shed-style roof off the back of the house. When I went to the building department to discuss it, we just found that where the steps are for the in-ground pool will put us too close for that 10-foot range to also make sure that we have shade during the day because of the way the sun goes through the backyard. Away from the house, really, you're only getting half of that shaded structure during the day. So to go all the way to 10 feet, we probably would have like 3 feet of shade. So.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Don't you want to tell us that your wife sunburns easily?
No, it's, it's, my wife enjoys the pool. It's my little ones that they go in the pool, they get out, they go in the pool, they get out, and,
Wife and kids now.
Yeah.
Umbrellas are clearly out of the question, but I don't want them to be.
Throw the in-laws under the bus, too?
Well, my parents live around the corner. They're
There
over
you
a
go.
lot. I'll do that.
Parents, dogs, cats.
The dog would love it. He would. I mean, that's true. But I don't know if it's going to brought up. I did talk to all my, because when I got the variance letter sent out, all of my neighbors started calling and texting me, "What are you doing?" And I told them I was putting a third floor on the house. But they none of them had any concerns with it. They just more so were being nosy on what was going on.
All right, thank you. We're going to open this up to the board for questions. Mr. Castellano?
I don't have any questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dorenzo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the fact that you did speak with your your neighbors, trying to avoid conflicts on the board here, and that knowing that you went and spoke with them or had conversations with them.
Yeah, I have very good
It's a lot of
relations with all of them. So like I said, as soon as they got the letters, they were more so, actually one of them said they were going to mess with me just because. And I wouldn't put it past them, but I know they wouldn't go this far. So
Okay. Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dorenzo. Mr. Michaeli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I went through 2 gazebos last summer, and I don't even live near a farm, so I see where you're coming from, but thank you, Madam Chair, I have no question.
yeah, my wife, she had a stroke in April, and we're blaming it on the gazebo. So
Go.
Really twist our arms with that guilt trip.
those are her words, and not mine.
Thank you, Mr. Michaeli. Mr. Stewart?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Mr. Suggs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
This is where you're supposed to say, happy wife, happy life.
I'm just thinking why the neighbors are all friendly because you got an in-ground pool. So they want coverage when they get out of that pool.
Most of them have in-ground pools themselves, so.
Yours is new.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, and I did meet Mr. Black. He showed me the situation, the problem, and the reason for the request, and it happened to be a very windy day.
Yes.
So I got into the wind tunnel, and I can certainly see why the gazebo didn't work. Okay, anyone in the audience have questions or comments? There being none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion.
May we have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
Thank you, Mr. Michaeli.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings, that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved with no other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance relief is not substantial, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is not self-created, that this board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicant if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that if the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief.
Thank you.
I'll second it, Jill.
Thank you. Okay, now the roll call vote.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Dorenzo?
Yes.
Mr. Michaeli?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Suggs?
Yes.
Chairman Monticelli?
Yes. Okay, you are all set then. The variance has been granted, and as you probably heard before, if you just contact the building department, they'll guide you from
All
there.
right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good
Okay,
evening.
thank you.
Tell your wife it was because of her he got it done.
That's right. You're welcome, thank you. All right. Any other business? I do have something I wanted to bring up, and I don't recall, it was when we were doing the meetings by phone. I had done a training where it was suggested that a good thing to have in the information that goes to the petitioners is notification that board members may be stepping by on their property, so that none of us ever gets accused of trespassing.
They're told that when they pick up the application.
They are told verbally? Okay, all right, this was something that was in writing, but as long as they're told verbally.
It can't hurt, though.
Okay.
Motion to close?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Storr?
I second it.
Seconded, Mr. Suggs. Thank you. Good night. I really gotta make some notes.
Last one?
Can't rely on my memory.
Try to get in your back.
Sorry?
Larry. Tom, tell Richard to sit alone.
I couldn't get into this.